I retired a few years ago, and you need to take a sabbatical. You need to take, this is my advice to all of you who worked really hard your whole life. I had a wonderful career. I just had a thrilling 33 years. But you get worn out, and you should always take some time off and get your affairs in order and just re-energize. I'm a big believer in sabbaticals. At the end of my sabbatical, I woke up one day and I was really concerned with how hard it is to be a creative person in this country these days. If you wake up one day and you want to be a writer or a musician or an artist, wow, it's really expensive to live anywhere. Even I live here in Brooklyn, and even Brooklyn has gotten too expensive for artists. So I decided I love art. I love working with creative people. Our only son had moved to San Francisco, and I decided, well, you can either give your money away or you can have fun spending it. So I opened an art gallery right in the center of Chelsea, right on the High Line. I'm right at the High Line elevator on 23rd Street. And I'm opening a gallery to give a break to really hardworking artists who deserve a show. And I'm conducting seminars for young early collectors to kind of talk about, why you should support the arts, why you should buy something from a living artist, and how do you start a collection. And I have a wonderful art advisor, and we have a lot of fun giving seminars and parties, book parties, nonprofits. I give the gallery to nonprofits. It's kind of like my salon, and I employ a lot of young people, and I kind of recreated my own young community to hang out with. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. primarily, but I moved around a lot because my father was in the Air Force. He was a pilot in the Air Force, so I think I went to 6 elementary schools before I was in 6th grade, which always, I had nothing but wonderful memories of moving, which always confused me when I would encounter young people at work who didn't want to move because of their kids or whatever. I thought moving was really exciting. I always remember I can still remember we moved mid-year one time when I was in 6th grade, and I remember how thrilling it was to walk in the classroom January 2nd as the new girl, and I thought that was fun. I remember that day very vividly. I worked at Time Incorporated for 33 years. It was my first job out of Harvard Business School, and so it was very unusual. I was a one-company person for my whole career, and I worked my way up. I spent almost 10 years working at Sports Illustrated and almost 10 years in the People franchise, and I got to launch a lot of magazines, so I was pretty prepared. I had filled out my dance card pretty well by the time I became chairman and CEO. Well, my husband and I, it was really Donovan who decided we were going to be photorealist collectors. My husband loved photorealism. I wonder if I would have gone more abstract, probably. I probably would, because I can see now in my gallery, I tend to, I just want to start all over again. I just want to move to have new blank walls to decorate. But in the city, we collect photorealism, because the first painting we bought was from Ivan Karp at OK Harris, which just closed in New York. We bought Ralph Going's Donut, and then it became an obsession with us, and we bought a Richard Estes Brooklyn Bridge, and we bought a Charles Bell, and we bought a Franz Gurch, and pretty soon all my walls were covered. I collect black and white photography in our beach house in the Hamptons, and part of that was because I grew up at Time Inc., Time Life, or the Time Life photographers. I used to ride the elevator with Eisenstadt. I worked at People magazine with Harry Benson. I mean, the photographers, the great photographers. I worked for 10 years at Sports Illustrated, the greatest sports photographers ever. I just have always just loved art, and I find the artists of the world to be really interesting people, and I think art is inspirational. I really do. I can't even imagine. It's what makes me crazy about the tech kids, that my son being one of them. They live in apartments with blank walls, and I don't understand blank walls myself, because it changes everything when you bang that first nail and hang your first picture. You should try it. If you don't have anything on your walls, you should try it. You won't believe the difference it makes. But then you have that sentimental. I have a sentimental attachment to Ralph Goins' donut, because it was the first painting we got. It always reminded me of our family. It was a donut, a cup of coffee, and a sugar bowl. I don't have, it would be like ants. People used to ask me this all the time when I was working in corporate America. What's your favorite magazine? It's like, you can't answer that question. It's like, who's your favorite child if you have more than one child? You don't have a favorite. There's not one answer. I have some favorites in my gallery right now. But again, they're all over the lot. I mean, some of these artists that I've been repping lately, they're like my children. In fact, for the first gallery opening, I had 3 of the artists staying here in my guest rooms. My husband looked at me and said, are we ever going to have an empty guest room again now that you've gotten into the art business? It's like, well, for the out-of-town artists, it's hard for them to afford to come to New York for the openings, so I always wanted to help them out. I have favorites, but there's no one favorite. Well, I was very proud to work for Time all those years. I thought we really served a really important public service, really. I mean, I think serious journalism is really needed. It's certainly, you can't run a democracy or a free enterprise based on sketchy information, and I was always in awe of our journalists who would really risk their lives to go into war zones or really tell the story of our times, and it was just an honor to work there. And I had a big impact on Time Inc. because I really helped diversify and keep it alive for as long as we did. It's been disrupted, obviously, by new technology now. But, there's always going to be need for real journalism. You really need fact-based information. And so it will reemerge in some other form. Disruption just happens in business, and you deal with it. In the art world, I'm really trying to do something unusual. I'm trying to expand the base of buyers. There's a lot of high-end buyers paying unbelievable prices for the high-end art. But there's just a lot of very affordable, wonderful art. And art is, I live with art. I've always been a collector. My husband and I collect Photo-realism. And I think art is inspirational. And I always tell people when I would come home from work, even after a really tough day, look at the art in my living room. It always just makes me feel happy. And buying art is a really personal thing. It shouldn't be about investment. It should be about what moves you, what speaks to you. And I'm just trying to educate this whole generation of young people. My son, he'll be 30 next month. We took the arts out of the public school system a generation ago, and so we have a whole generation of young, bright people who did not grow up necessarily with an appreciation for the arts. And so I mostly lecture, the financial kids and the tech kids, the mathematical kids, who just don't have creative people in their lives, who don't know anything about art. I try and bring them in and really turn them on to collecting and introduce them to live working artists. And I'm the matchmaker. That's my new career. I'm just a matchmaker between the kids who have too much and our artists who have too little. And that for me is a really satisfying thing. I think that I learned that, if you really pursue a passion, work doesn't feel like work. So my art gallery is just like Time Inc. It wasn't really work to me. It was really great. Here's my advice now. remember to live 20 years at the end to enjoy yourself. I mean, I think I earned it. And, you know, you can get really addicted to hanging out with creative people. They're very unusual.